welcome back to Two Homers and a Realist. This is the midweek pod as we prepare for a big game against the Missouri Tigers. I'm Steve.
Lucas.
Connor.
Jay.
And guys, the midweek pod brought to us by Dr. Michael Kiehn, board-certified surgeon, specializing in orthopedic sports medicine, serving the Oklahoma City area, greater Oklahoma City area in western Oklahoma. His surgical skills primarily in the knees and shoulders, but he's a constant figure on football sidelines throughout Oklahoma high schools and colleges. His deep commitment to sports and devotion to his patients proves that he's a man to see, even though he's an Oklahoma State fan. Thank you, Dr. Kiehn. And guys, we've got a chance to be bowl eligible in a game that we have flipped the script on already. We've gone from a 1-point dog to a 3-point favorite. Tell me I shouldn't be super excited about this matchup.
I'm not going to tell you that.
Lucas, is there a realist take on that?
I mean, it's exciting in the fact that this is do or die for bowl season to me, because the last two games are definitely less winnable than this one. But exciting, I'm not that excited about it.
I'm excited because
excited about it.
I'm excited because it feels like the game finally in the SEC. South Carolina should have felt this way. It wasn't, but
Auburn felt that
we
way.
could and should win.
Well, Auburn did and didn't. I mean, Auburn, we were in a rebound mode with the backup quarterback. This one is like we're kind of getting things aligned a little bit more.
Yeah.
Seemingly. What do you think, Jay? Excited? Not excited?
I guess the normal amount of excited. I think it's a imperative win. It probably goes without question that I don't really foresee us being able to beat Bama or LSU, and you have to get bowl eligible. You have to.
So I think it's an imperative win and an imperative look good game, but it's also that way, not just from what you say as far as that gets us bowl eligible, but it's also if you're going to have a chance against Alabama and LSU, you got to show up and look good here. It's really hard to believe that you can go to Missouri with, it seems like some players back, we'll talk about that in a second, playing against a backup quarterback, it most likely, and not perform well, and then have any kind of a chance in those next two games. But if you do well, you can build on that and have a chance in those other games to at least be competitive. It'll be a shocker of all shockers if you lose to Missouri, but get bowl eligible by beating Alabama or LSU. Weird things happen. I could see scenarios where it happens, but it would take a fluky game probably if we're not good enough to just flat out beat Missouri.
Yeah, I mean, their best win right now is a late winner against Vanderbilt. So I'm not saying we have a great win on the schedule. Auburn is our best win, right? I'd say.
Yeah.
So
Houston.
Tulane's actually
Tulane could be
a run.
Tulane.
Houston's having a good run.
I mean, you're talking a conference champion in Tulane, most likely, and a pretty good team in Houston.
So I mean, Missouri's lost to who they lose to? Texas A&M and
Throttled by A&M.
Alabama. Got killed by Alabama.
Yeah, killed by Alabama.
So I don't know. I think it's Missouri at 6-2 probably feels, with the expectations they had after last season, probably feels similar to where we feel at our current record at 5-4. Like underperforming, expected more from this team to be in games against teams like Alabama and not have to worry about games like against Vanderbilt, who's proven to be a decent team. So I don't know. I'm excited because I think it's gonna be a really good atmosphere. I think Missouri feels like they're probably in a must-win situation too, regardless. I mean, they're bowl eligible, whatnot, but they're trying to maintain some sort of relevancy on their end.
I mean, they're still in it with 2 losses. They still have everything ahead of them.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah, except the tiebreakers may not work. Well, yeah, the tiebreakers might be tough for them, but yeah, they
A&M getting
they have a
beat,
backdoor
A&M
chance.
getting beat by South Carolina was helpful for them. For
Mhm.
sure. So I don't know. It's a question for you guys, and it's been something that's been circulating since we've announced our plan to join the SEC a few years ago. Is Missouri a rivalry game for us?
No.
I'll have some stats on that later.
So, but what's your answer? Can you give a preliminary answer?
I would say no.
I'd say no.
I'd say
It's
no as
only
well.
slightly intriguing because we used to be in
play.
the same pod.
Yeah, I don't know why it would be a rivalry. That doesn't make sense to me. If they're
it
a
annoyed me
rivalry, everybody we used to play in the Big Eight would be
Right.
a rivalry.
Right.
I
I
think
don't
they even go back to
understand.
Big 7 days.
They do, yeah, yeah. Which is actually technically the Big Eight. If you look it up, it's really weird. No, it's really weird. They trace the Big Eight all the way back to before Missouri Valley, and I don't understand why they give it that. I guess organizationally, it was the same organization. They didn't dissolve it and form a new one. They just changed their name, which I think is nonsense because no one thinks of it that way. They think of it by the name of the conference and who was
Right.
in it, and when you added other teams. So anyway, that's a weird technical glitch in it. Yeah, they go back a long time, but I mean, so does Kansas. So does Kansas State. To a degree, so did Colorado. I don't understand.
It
why
feels
they
like
say that.
Missouri fans reaching for a blue blood rivalry that they've never had.
Reaching for relevance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, OU's our rival because we're OU, and it lends some, like you said, some relevance to them.
Well,
So,
they probably, and this is true for a lot of teams versus OU, we don't hate them the way they hate us
Yeah.
because time and again, we ripped their season away from them, especially in the late 2000s. With two in 2007 and 2011, if I remember right, we just completely destroyed all their hopes and dreams.
2008 as well.
And if you look at, and if you
Beat the
look
crap out of
at
them
a
twice.
team like Florida State, now they're at a higher echelon historically for a shorter period once they became a men's college, but they had a much bigger legacy. But we played them, and I mean, in the '80s, we ruined their season by beating them in a bowl, and then obviously we had their number numerous times back when we win the national championship and et cetera.
The home
I don't think
game.
we look at them the way they look at us.
Yeah.
So I think that's a little bit of the Missouri factor. I'm sure, Missouri, Nebraska is a little closer to a rivalry.
Missouri, Kansas is
Missouri, Kansas definitely.
Yeah,
a
sorry, you're
rivalry.
talking about blue blood, a rivalry type.
Well, either way, it's just thinking of who is Missouri's traditional rivals from the old conference.
And it's
days.
Kansas. I think Kansas would be the
Yeah,
closest.
and that goes back to historical stuff. That's like OU Texas, the Missouri Kansas history in outside of football and outside of sports. It is brutal and awful stuff.
Right.
It is crazy back in the slave trade days and all kinds of stuff. There's some ugliness between those two states and those two regions. But as far as Oklahoma versus Missouri, I don't see it. I think that's people trying to invent something.
Mhm.
Now, would you think they're a bigger rival than A&M? Especially if you're thinking of a future pod situation with the schools and the alignment?
Yes, for sure. Just based on the number of times we played,
Mm-hmm.
because A&M was in the Southwest Conference all
Yeah.
those years, and we didn't play them that often.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely say of the current SEC squads, it's Texas, and then probably Missouri's got to be next.
I think I'd probably rather be aligned to Missouri as well, to be honest.
I agree. Oh, yeah, definitely.
I don't
Well,
want to have to be
I
aligned
would,
to the.
no, there's no doubt about it.
In
If
the
you're
pod-
looking at in the future, who's a
But
threat?
yeah, in terms of just if they are more, if you're going off that, I agree with
The
you.
pod situation, I would like OU, Texas, Missouri, Arkansas,
Yes.
just for regionality.
Regional,
Completely agree.
not
Road
not too
trips
difficult,
would be easy.
great road trips. Like, don't put us with LSU or even A&M.
Right.
That's not fair,
Well, they
and
have
not
their own
fair to them
rivalry now.
too.
That's
Right.
a big rivalry, so they should be in their own pod with.
Right. Well,
mean-
but Texas A&M, so that's gonna be tough for Texas. Like, I could see them potting us and A&M.
I don't think they want that.
It's
But I don't
mutually,
think they
yeah,
want
and
that
it's
either.
mutually,
Either
it's
school
mutually
wants that.
beneficial.
Well, I
for
wouldn't want it
Texas at
either
that
because if I were them, I would just,
beneficial in terms of getting the rivalry games. But yeah,
I
it's
mean, as far
almost
as
like
the
you make
competition,
Texas
that's not
pick
fair.
pick OU or pick Texas, and the obvious pick is OU.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they decided to do some weird, OU plays Texas every year as an out of conference game. You
Out
know,
of pod game.
Well, sort of like out of conference.
it
I
could
see
be
what
out
you're
of
saying.
conference,
Out of pod.
but I
yeah.
don't know how they would schedule all the other ones and.
It seems like that would mess things up.
Maybe that's what you could utilize that ninth conference game for. It's just
Oh, a rivalry
rivalry
game.
week.
The ninth matchup is a rivalry.
But you want the
matchup.
rivalries, you want the rivalries in the pod, like you're not gonna put Bama and Auburn in separate pods,
I wouldn't think so.
There's so many weird
I
like
don't
just
know, you can
cross
do it.
rivalries though in the
like
in the
Alabama,
SEC.
Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean,
Alabama, Tennessee,
yeah,
Georgia.
yeah. Honestly,
Like there's so many forks.
Auburn is like OU Oklahoma State, OSU is not our rival the same way we are for them.
Right.
Auburn, Alabama, that's how that is. They
Bama,
don't,
LSU, right? I mean, that's a rivalry.
well, Bama and Tennessee is the traditional
Auburn,
rivalry
Alabama's a
there.
whole lot closer of a win-loss than.
Oh,
Well, yeah.
well, everything
Yeah.
is, but they don't look at them the same way. Like if you
I
told
mean, it's almost
Alabama,
like 50-50.
pick your historic, oh, I don't think it's that close.
It's really close.
Really?
Auburn, Auburn won for a long time.
Well, maybe from a long time ago, kind of like an OU Texas, but it's
We'll get our crack millennial stat tracker over here.
Good
and figure
deal.
it out.
But I mean, the traditional rivalry when they both were good was Alabama, Tennessee, and then obviously
Florida,
LSU
Georgia.
and Florida. Yeah, well, I'm thinking about that for Bama
Oh, for Bama.
specifically, but yeah, Florida, Georgia, and and that goes back before they were really good.
How do y'all feel about the cocktail party, the way they split their stands?
How do
They split
they-
it down the middle
down
where
the-
one team is on that
Right.
team's sideline and the other fans.
I don't
on
like
that
it as
other
much.
Team sideline.
I don't think it's as good because you don't own an end zone.
Yeah, you're definitely not on the road going either direction.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like the OU Texas where it is meaningful and significant to think about which end zone are you
It
going
would be kind of weird to just have sound from
one
just
side.
the right hand side.
Yeah,
when you're
that
doing
would be
this
kinda
way.
really weird.
I do,
Very odd.
I do wish that because crimson and burnt orange aren't similar, but they're close enough Pantone that
Right. You can't
That-
see it. It doesn't clash.
Yeah, it doesn't-
when they do the
doesn't-
overhead shot, I wish that away team would tell their fans to
Wear the white.
If it was
That'd be
Texas on the road and they're all wearing white on that half,
I like
I
that.
think it would look really cool from above. As opposed
like
to,
that.
you really can't tell if you took the 50-yard line out
Yeah,
of it.
you've got to know
Right.
what you're looking
You
at.
really couldn't.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
hard to tell from a helicopter shot or drone shot or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, my mom
Which team's
watched it
which?
this year. She couldn't tell.
Yeah.
It was-
Because
I think
Yeah.
that could be something moving forward that'd be cool
I
to,
like that
if
idea.
they just said, hey, all the fans were, if you're the away team, you're wearing white. If you're the home team, you're wearing crimson or burnt orange. I think that'd be cool.
I like that. I think that'd be add to the
What would be the
specialness of it.
downside to it?
No, there's no
I don't
downside.
think there's any downside to it.
No, none at
People
all.
just wouldn't do it.
I mean,
I bet you'd get a
I
pretty
think you
good
get
uptake.
70% of each
At
fan
least.
base.
I think at
doing it.
least.
So,
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I think at least because unlike the stripe the stadium or any of that stuff, you don't have to coordinate.
Yeah.
You just know what
Know
you're
what to
supposed to
wear.
do.
Right.
And unlike, what did we do the whiteout against? South Carolina? It's something that we can talk about and prepare for months.
It's more
We
meaningful
know
as
it's gonna
well.
come.
Yeah.
And once you start doing it, then you remember and expect to do it
Right.
because it's an ongoing tradition. It's not one time the South Carolina game, we go all white, it's a whiteout, and then we'll never do that again for South Carolina at home. It'll be some other team. that
There's
we do
another
that
benefit
for.
too, is if your team loses and you're walking around the fair afterwards, it's not as
There's
easy to spot.
Yep.
Like if you just see a group of guys-
Unmistakable.
Yeah.
Yep. That's so true. You see a group of guys and you're like, you turn around. Oh, okay. You look at the little
Yeah.
breast pocket, you see, okay, there's a long
Well, no,
there's
if you
Sooner.
set it up to where the only away fans are in white.
That's what I'm saying. You can
Yeah.
know right away.
You
Yeah.
know, yeah.
Because right now you don't. Yeah.
It'd be like somebody
exactly.
wearing a red hat with
You could even see, I
words
mean,
on it.
sometimes when they're walking around with the burnt orange, it's hard to tell that that's what that is until you get close enough. And like, I mean, you've had that problem high-fiving people.
Yeah, that was, yeah, very much so. Like, very confused at times.
What's Auburn, Alabama?
For reference, what'd you say?
What's Auburn now?
It is all-time Iron Bowl record is in favor of Alabama, 50, 37, and 1.
It's not that far off.
I thought it was about 60-40.
Yeah, and that's, if you just go the last probably 20 years, it would probably neck and neck. Because Bam is definitely one of the last 20 years. Pretty safe, but it was probably
Yeah.
closer to 50-50.
Interesting.
That game is
So-
always fun. That game has its intrigue for sure.
Well, this game has had its intrigue. We've had some difficult times in Columbia. We've had some really good experiences against Missouri in general. We've got some players back for this game. It sounds like, I don't know. We got the injury report, the preliminary one that came out this evening.
20 guys on it. Yeah.
17.
It's 17.
guys
Chill out.
injured.
Come
Well,
on.
there's still a
And all
couple
the
days left to
usuals,
practice.
plus running backs. I mean, that didn't sound good, but the word that we're getting from, I guess it was it a press conference or what did Arnold, would he say that just
It was an after
post-practice.
practice, post
after?
practice.
Yeah, so he says they got some guys back. I mean, he's acting excited.
He
Sure,
specifically said two
two
dudes.
dudes. I mean, you're not going to say that about linemen. It's got to be receivers. And so then the question becomes, surely this is not more cat and mouse games that we're playing with we're going to suit guys up and run them through and make them pretend.
That's a
like, come on,
deep state operation right there.
Please
if you
don't
if
do
Venables
that.
is like,
If-
hey,
if he's
No,
doing
I'm-
that once again, we
I mean,
may
they
just
did it
have
with
to say
OU
fire
Texas
the
game.
guy.
No, as far as suiting people up, I don't think so, but I actually think Arnold slipped up.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I don't think he was
Because-
supposed to say that.
I don't either, because realistically, it changes your defensive game plan for Missouri.
Yeah, well,
And
maybe
it might have helped
completely
change the
maybe
spread.
they wanted to. Maybe they wanted to change it up. Maybe they want to put a little fear in them and make them prepare for something different. I mean, I don't know.
I think they're gonna, play more man coverage and bring their safeties up, and not worry about this
So-
and that. And if you hear that your two, star receivers in their team who haven't been there all season are back, they might get to adjust their whole game plan.
So if you're Missouri, though, don't you have to just expand the repertoire of what you're practicing, not knowing if it's for real or not?
I
So
don't
you've
know
got
though.
to
Do you
both?
like how much changes? How much changes with what? I mean, we're running with our second offensive coordinator of the season. How much more do we think we can add on top of what we've already been doing?
Maybe they practice less zone and more man. I don't know.
That's
So
true. That's a
It's
good
probably
point.
about
That's a good point.
alignment.
But it could
And who's going to be on the field?
but
at
it
that
could
time?
increase what they have to practice. It could be bad for Missouri.
They could spend more time on nickel, knowing that we may throw more receivers.
I think that's got to be good for OU, bad for Missouri. If,
Oh,
if
I
they have
think
to
it's
split up what they're doing
benefit for
now, if they're for sure playing, it's probably worse because now they've prepared for it at all, where they wouldn't have prepared for it theoretically.
That's what I'm thinking.
That could be. That could be. I don't know. Then that's a pretty bad slip up. He shouldn't have said that. Well, be it as it may, he said it, and OU flipped to now be a favorite. Do you guys feel like that really flips the script in OU's favor that dramatically?
If the offensive line can't block long enough to throw the ball to them.
Do we play the freshman this week again, you think? I mean, well, I guess we might have to, based on the injury report. Like, the EPL get significant run?
No.
Does the left tackle that played last week get significant run? I'm looking at
think
Jake.
whoever started
Stuff.
last week is our starters.
I don't know.
I mean, Tarquin was questionable,
Yeah.
right? Taylor's out and Sexton's out, but
Yeah, we have
Tarquin was
3 tackles
questionable.
out. Yeah. Parkman might give it a go, see how his ankle is, so he can play right tackle, but if not, it's gonna be, Brown.
I think we're gonna be fine.
Well,
It's gonna be okay.
It's a homer take.
It's gonna be fine. I would not be excited, even with what the injury report comes out. I'm excited for this game. Like, I think there's I'm not saying, again, we watched us play Maine last week, and we watched us play one pretty good half against Ole Miss.
Well, the one questionable that we didn't mention is Barnes, which is a huge question.
yeah,
It is, but
it's really bad to see
thank
that.
goodness we have someone like Taylor Tatum and now Robinson in the backfield but
It's
like
still
the
those
depth
two
is
freshmen.
Two guys that can't pass block. More than likely.
that's fair. That's a
That's
fair
fair.
point.
I mean, it's
Sawchuk
all-
is
it's all
also
concerning.
questionable.
Yeah. It seems unlikely that both Salchuk and Barnes will be out.
I would bet, I would say with 80% confidence that Barnes plays.
Well, we're going up also
But wouldn't
against
you have a
a
problem?
much weaker. Well, I would think so too.
You think
That's a good question.
questionable worse than probable?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why they would be both questionable. That's unfortunate if that's really true. We are going up against the weakest defensive front that we faced in the SEC.
I don't know, that might be better than Auburn's,
I mean, right up there with Auburn, right? So we had a lot of success
but it's
against
still
Auburn.
not a weak defense.
No.
Like their metrics are still, they're still like a top 30 defense.
Are they
They're
really
just not
top 30?
Yeah, they're just not as good as the ones we've been playing.
Yeah, when you play 3 top 10 defenses.
Well, that's a
And then
big difference.
and you get to face 28 and it's
Yeah, that's a difference. That's a pretty big difference. That's a big fall off
Yeah,
between
but
10 and
what's
20.
funny is, it's probably the the second best defense we would face
In the Big 12. Yeah.
And it's our
Yeah.
fifth best
Well,
this season so far.
it's, we've got,
Way to bring us down.
yeah, really, no kidding. We've got some impediments to success, obviously, between the injuries to the offensive line. If the running backs are truly not going to be playing, hopefully they're either playing or not playing. I'd really hate it if they're putting a guy in there who's questionable when you got another guy who's serviceable, who's completely healthy. I'd rather just play the healthy guy at this point. There's nothing that these running backs bring that is that head and shoulders above, I don't think. That always bothers me when you play a player just because he's the guy when he's injured and clearly
Shouldn't
it's
be
not going, he shouldn't be out there on the field. So that'll be interesting to see. But having the receivers back, that could make a world of difference. I mean, if nothing else, if you can just get one of the elements that we've been missing working, blocking, catching the ball, running good routes, any of those three, much less more than one, really starts to add a lot to your offense.
I think Burks would bring the quick passing game,
The screens.
and Farouk, his benefit would probably be blocking on the outside for run plays.
Yeah, and
Or the screens. I mean, it'd be nice if, Jordan's proven that he can block. If you could get Jordan and Farouk, and then you're running Burks across, then you throw in the quick screen, and you got those two guys blocking instead of Brennan Thompson. And,
Yes.
And carry Reagan's or whoever. That gives you a better chance of moving the ball downfield.
Yep.
Especially
to just avoid the one drive killing drop that we seem to always find a way to have. That's going to be a world of difference.
We'll see. What'll be interesting though is like the player that will be taken off the field will be Jordan.
Hopefully not,
Taken
but
out
you're
of the
probably
slot.
right.
Yeah, it'll be Burks' spot.
Could you run Burks outside though?
Sure, they all.
I mean, for me, you can put Jordan in Thompson's spot.
Yeah, I don't see why you couldn't put Jordan
on a
outside.
lot of those plays.
I
mean, he's not
agree.
your deep threat, but
it's just
he's the sit down in the zone guy, and he can block. So maybe you just tailor 3 or 4 plays.
I
don't know.
unfortunately think you're right.
I don't think you ever take the speed threat off the field, even if it's just to run players out of the
Well,
When
well,
they're-
that's fine. I
when they're
mean,
running hitches all the time, though.
that
what's the
doesn't worry me
difference?
though that much. If you're taking Jordan off the field, that I really like Jordan and what he's brought, but you're bringing in better. If you get 2 of those guys, I mean, that's great. You're in great shape.
Well, and maybe you take some of the load off Thompson where you can focus on
doing what he does.
actually running a
Yeah.
route.
Yeah, and I don't know. I haven't really thought of this, but could the guy be getting tired? He's playing more than he usually plays. And
Hope not.
it's slowing him down. I don't know.
Yeah, those skinny fire guys to get tired.
You wouldn't think so, but I don't know. Well, let's transition. We got some trivia. You have some trivia for us, Lucas?
Got some trivia.
All right, trivia time, boys.
All right. Let's see here. Wish I had it pulled up. We play Missouri. This is a Connor 3.
Correct, true. Did I get the
This
trivia
is a
right?
Connor 3-parter. Can you guys guess the first year we played Missouri?
Yes, I can.
I can guess it. I'll probably be pretty far
All
off.
right.
I'll guess it because if I don't guess first, I'll just gauge my answer off what Steve says. 1956.
Jay?
I was actually going to say that, and I have no idea.
I would bet it's a lot earlier than that. I would bet it was.
Steve has Googled this before.
I would bet it was 1912.
I've got 1902. Is what my stats show.
What was the score?
What would you ask that, sir?
1902.
November 12th, 1902. Missouri won 22-5.
Pretty good. That predates. I've actually got our history
That
here.
was
That's,
in Columbia.
I wouldn't have known that. I had our history printed out. But
They didn't play again until 1910 and
Yeah.
lost in Joplin,
uh-huh.
26-0. So,
That's actually very important for what I was going to bring in terms of extra trivia after you're done with yours, because that's I like where you're going with this.
okay,
That's
here's my second question on trivia. And these are linked together, but
was Missouri not? They may not have been a Division One or whatever equivalent level school at that point.
that's not a factor in my trivia question.
Well, that's why they wouldn't have showed up in my
It
stats.
didn't say
but keep
Kingfisher
going.
College or anything. Kingfisher High School.
I'm just wondering why they didn't show up in my stats. But go ahead. That's the
So you can have this stat two different ways. We've played Mizzou 36 times since 1970. That's
36 times?
36 times since 1970. How many has Missouri won?
I won't look, and I'll
7.
try to guess that.
So we're 29.
And then I also picked 1984. We played them 22 times since 1984.
So out of how many times? 30.
So the 36 since
36.
1970.
I would bet. I bet they've beaten us like 7 times since
Okay.
then.
That's what I said.
Okay, Jay?
Seven's good.
I'll go last. I'll go.
4 times.
4
since
times.
1970.
Job, Jay.
Wow.
And
You guys
since
talk about this in the car?
1984, they've only beaten us twice.
Yeah.
And we
2000,
played,
2000,
Yeah.
2011 and
and we played a lot in that time frame.
2000,
Did we ever lose
No.
Brad Smith?
2010
2010 and
in
98.
Missouri.
Lost in 98 and we lost in 2010.
Yep. And I was
And
at the 98
The
game.
2010 game.
That's
was
when we
massively
knew
frustrating.
for sure,
Blake gets
it was
fired?
done with Blake.
Yeah.
Yep. But he was
Was that
done.
Brad Smith?
Neither
So-
of those were Brad Smith.
No, 10 would have been Macklin and
What's his face? The longest tenured.
Blaine Gabbert?
Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, Blaine Gabbert.
Blaine
Yeah.
Gabbert.
And
Not
then-
Chase Daniel.
Not Chase
Daniel
Daniel.
never beat us.
Nope, he did not
Yeah,
beat
that's
us.
right.
We
So-
waxed them though.
Those are good. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look up and see why my history only went back to
And I had that
1912.
on 2 different places, the 1902 game.
That yeah, it's. I'm trying to
You
remember
said
back to those.
1912,
1912. Yeah,
so I've got us playing,
twice before that.
Yep. I got it, no, 3 times.
Oh, really?
1902, 1910, 1911, and 1912. And we were 1 and 3 after the 1912 game. But then we played 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 20. I mean, it's consecutive every year.
Hmm.
So, because we were in the
Well,
same
yeah, I mean,
conference. at that
Big
point.
Eight. Yeah, Big Seven, Big Eight.
Yeah. So
Well,
there was 5 ties in there.
so a couple
Our
things that are
overall
interesting.
record, you
Go
know,
ahead.
overall record?
Yeah, I do.
Overall record is 67, 24, and 5.
So
rivalry.
67.
I don't know what you call it a rivalry when you're
No.
that big a dominant over there.
I wish he does.
So because you have 3 games that I don't have. Yeah, because I have 66, 22, and 5. And we have a significant margin of victory lead over them. Home, away, any place.
Did you add all that up?
Neutral. 2-0
How many thousand
neutral.
points we scored?
No, I had the average, but you could multiply. Here's something that stood out to me, and I've always thought of this for a reason I'll be obvious in just a second. So we've had a lot of games against Missouri. It feels like a lot. I didn't go back to look and see how it compares, but a lot of games that were shutouts. We had one game that was a 0-0 tie, back in 1930. But we have had quite a few ties. We've had 26 games. Actually, you had one of those that were ties in that early period, so it'd be 27 ties. It wasn't?
No.
The first one wasn't? Or the 1910?
Nope.
Okay.
They're all post 12.
Okay. So 26 games with it had a shutout of one team or the other.
Wow.
My first away game ever, 1983, 10-0, Missouri beat Oklahoma. Spencer Tillman got hurt so bad they had to bring an ambulance onto the field. That was back when they were growing their field out extra long to slow us down. And it was a big controversy. I mean, it was ridiculous how much they used to grow the field out to slow us down.
My first ever home Oklahoma game
Was 77-0.
77-0, 1986.
Yes,
I was in the
correct.
south end zone.
Yeah.
They flew some jets. It was homecoming.
Mm-hmm,
They flew some jets over from the south, as they still do.
mm-hmm.
Scared the living crap out of me because I had no idea they were coming. And I mean, you talk about dominating
Yeah,
for your first ever game.
yeah.
Incredible.
It was a totally
And
incredible
that's
game.
what gets the bug in you.
So that's how the monster gets its
77
seed. So my first game, away game ever, it is a shutout the wrong way. Yours is a tremendously good shutout. Our good friend Kevin, his first OU game ever was a 37-0 shutout in 1999, with Stoops' first year. So some pretty interesting back and forth. You can go this way. It'd be the easier way to go, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, you're up there.
Here's a lot of chords here. You might want to push. No. Do this.
I'll just be an adult and hold it.
I drink a lot of Diet Coke. Okay.
So pretty interesting. I don't know if it is that significant, but it sure seemed like there were a lot of shutouts there. And we had 7 times that we were defeated in terms of shutout. Now a lot of those come back in the 30s and before that, obviously. But just interesting little anomaly there for sure. And the fact that all of us had a little bit of a start with a shutout associated with Mizzou.
We were all at the last time, the game we played Missouri last time, 2011. Came
Mhm.
back in that game. Was a comeback, Landry Jones, Ryan Broyles, 2011.
Yeah, that was great. And then that was that the year we played them twice?
No, that would have been
2007. Yeah, that's when we really crushed their
We
dreams.
played him twice. Did we play him twice in 07 and 08?
No, just 07.
Just 07. I thought we beat him.
Mm-mm.
San Antonio and Kansas City.
Yep. That was and that was when they were riding high. They really thought they were the shit. And no, we proved them
Well,
wrong.
that would have put him in the natty
Mhm.
against well, everyone thought it was gonna be West Virginia.
They ended up not even making a BCS bowl
West Virginia got beat.
because Kansas went to the Orange
Orange
Bowl
Bowl,
right.
and won. Mark Mangino.
Against Virginia Tech.
Yeah. So that you talk about a reason to hate us. There it is right there. We cost them a shot at a national championship.
We
Or-
played in the national championship in 07. That would have been
LSU.
LSU Bama.
2-loss LSU. No, it was
No, that
2-loss
was
LSU.
2001. Against Ohio State.
No,
Or was that Florida? Ohio State. Did Florida
Oh,
go
it
back
was-
to back when they beat us?
they did. Yeah,
We went back by-
yeah. It was
So
Florida,
it would've
Ohio
been
State.
Florida,
Yeah.
Ohio State. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think Ohio State took the opening kickoff.
They did. Not only that, but
Ted Ginn.
the opening kickoff in the Super Bowl went for a touchdown as well that same year.
I wish I could replace that useless information with something that actually,
Like made us money.
yeah, that'd be nice.
Well, it doesn't. That's the stuff that's stuck in our brains for sure. Well, I tell you what else gets stuck in your brains, and that is when you got something locked up, just kind of won't let go, and that is the locks of the week.
The Realist Deal Locks of the Week.
And the Realist Deal Locks of the Week are brought to you by David and Josh, a local business servicing the metro area from 5 Star Concrete. Patios, sidewalks, driveways, shops, and more. Call them, text them, 405-306-3014. Look them up on Facebook, 5 Star Concrete. The best concrete guys in the nation, I'm going to call it. So locks of the week were kind of interesting this past week. I thought that it was just, I don't know. I was told that I was not any good at locks of the week. And it turns out I was okay. I was 2-1 last week.
Two.
Jay was also 2-1,
First
of
time this
course.
season for you?
No, second.
Oh.
At least.
Third time.
Third time.
Third time.
Yeah,
Third
third.
time.
Easy.
It's just been so long. I just been...
Yeah, well, screw you. It might be the second actually. Jay was 2-1. The listener was 2-1. Connor was 1-2, and Lucas was donut and 3. So overall records coming into this week, I am making some improvement, but I got a ways to go. 11-19 for 37%. Connor 13-16-1, 45%. Lucas now underwater 13-15-2, 47%. And Jay Cocky J, 22-8, 73%, making it look easy. Regression to the mean coming for our good friend Jay.
Yeah, it happened last year for sure.
So, have you guys prepared? You have your locks of the week locked and loaded and ready to go?
Yes.
All right, I do too. Who wants to go first?
We want to do our listener first?
Let's do our listener first. Who's the listener?
Our
picking this
listener
week.
is Joey from Tobacco Exchange.
Joey!
Post-game sponsor, one of them. And he sent me his today. He's got Georgia minus 2.5 against Ole Miss. He's got Michigan plus 14 at Indiana.
Like it. I like that pick.
Alabama minus 3 at LSU.
It's picking big boy games.
He wasn't messing around. He was going with the two power conferences. SEC.
He works
Big
at
Ten.
Tobacco Exchange. He does
So-
not mess around.
Michigan against
Indiana.
Indiana,
Plus
right?
14.
Plus 14. That's and then Bama
Alabama minus
minus 3.
against LSU. We appreciate Joey's sponsorship.
Yes, we do. And we
Thanks,
Joey.
appreciate
Thanks,
those
Joey.
picks. Those are boy, he did go to some big boy football, didn't he? Nice. All right, well, Jay, you're the leader. Why don't you go first?
I'm gonna take Colorado minus 3.5 against Texas Tech. Iowa minus 6.5 at UCLA,
I like that pick.
and BYU minus 4.5 Utah.
1.5 against Utah, the team that's really struggling. BYU, they're in the driver's seat to find a way to get into that conference championship and get into the college football playoff. I've got
that the
something to
Holy
ask
One?
you guys about the college
Yep.
football playoff. Yeah.
Let's go down the order then. So I'll be next.
All right.
Based on our winning percentage. I have Army minus 5.5 against North Texas. I don't see this Army train stopping rolling. I mean,
Can't stop the Army.
they can score points.
Is their starting quarterback
a
back?
well-greased machine.
Because they won last week without their starting quarterback.
They don't need starting quarterbacks to win. They're Army. Next man up.
They have guns.
I've got
It's not fair, really.
Oregon minus 24.5 against Maryland. That seems like a low line to me
It does.
because Oregon's been racking them up.
Yeah.
And then I've got Duke minus 3 against NC State.
What is the line?
He said
Minus 3.
-3. NC State. All right.
All right, I've got Iowa State giving 3 against Kansas. Iowa State's going to bounce back after a major disappointment last week. I've got Army as well, giving 5.5 against North Texas. And then Jay, I think you're going to want to take the line that I took. I have Iowa giving 4.5 against UCLA.
I would definitely take that.
So
Yeah, that line moved.
Yep.
I like that pick. I got Virginia Tech getting 6.5 against Clemson. I too like the Army, 5.5.
That's his
Hey, I was 2-1, Mr. 0-3. I don't want to hear about it.
Never a good sign when three
I don't want to hear about
take
it.
the same line.
Well, I like Army giving. I'd like it if it was 6.5, but they're only giving 5.5 to North Texas, and then UConn giving 6.5 to UAB.
I mean, they're going to get a new commander in chief, so maybe the Army will be all pumped up.
It could be. Yeah.
Could be.
That's true. It's true. Trump won yesterday. Everything's different. It's the best army ever or something. Well, we'll see. We got a few more weeks to go to see if we can get into some positive territory for all of us and join Jay in the elite making money business against Vegas. But we'll see. Transitioning, we got prop bet of the week. You got a prop bet of the week for us?
My prop bet of the week is how many different players will have a reception against Missouri this week? The average so far this season is a 7.5.
Is that where you're setting the line?
So that's where the line's set.
7.5 different receivers. I can't believe it's that high. Wow.
Just
any player.
any pass
Yep.
catcher.
Yeah. That's
Not
just-
receiver.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, different
Jackson Arnold
players.
has a
Yeah,
catch this
yeah,
season. So
true.
that was one of 11 1 week. So 7.5 is the one. Is what it averaged out to.
Different players to have reception.
That's a good line. Dang, that's tough. I'm gonna go under.
I'm gonna go under.
I'm gonna go over just because we have two new receivers coming back.
I think we'll throw to them 92.5% of the
Well,
time.
I don't know stamina wise if they'll get as much playing time as they normally would.
Oh,
So
when we're
I
up by like
I
65
think
to
they'll be
nothing.
rotating more guys out there just to give them breathers to get their legs back up.
I think it's too high, but I'll go over. I think I see 8 catchers.
All right.
You think it's too high, but I'm still going over.
Yeah.
Interesting
All right.
logic. Okay, good.
That's how Jay
Good
wins
prop bet
everything.
for sure. So before we get to predictions on our score, let me ask you guys this. This came up in a discussion this week. So is the best spot in the playoff, all things considered, to be the 5th spot? Here's the logic. So it's obviously it's great to get the bye.
The
But
answer is yes.
If you get the bye, you don't get to host a game. And then immediately, if you're the number 1 seed, you're playing the 8-9, right? Winner of the 8-9. If you're in the 5th spot, you get to host a game against probably a group of 5 team who's in the 12th spot, and then you play the weakest of the top 4. And you play the number 4 team that got the bye, which in many years is going to be a conference champion who's really weak
Of the lowest conference.
of the lowest conference.
Yeah, BYU's
Like-
there right now.
It doesn't have to be BYU. It could be Colorado.
Correct.
It could be it could be Indiana. It could be anybody who happens to win that game. So you not only are maybe not playing the rightful best team from that conference, you may be playing the team that snuck in and happened to get the victory.
Yeah,
Whereas
the only,
if you're in the other spot, the only thing that's really obviously good is you don't play a football game.
yeah, that's the only thing against it, right? I mean, set up from a long-term trajectory. If you're confident in the team, who's the 5 seed right now? Texas?
Ohio State.
Ohio State? So if you're Ohio State, I trust myself to go beat most teams in the nation, especially a 12 seed who's getting in.
So you're playing Army at
And
home,
then give me BYU, give me
Colorado.
Colorado,
Give me
any of those teams.
Miami.
Yeah.
Who's number 2 in the ACC right now? That tells you something that we can't come up with it.
Could be SMU.
Give me
So the
SMU.
bracket is set. Playoff start.
Right.
There's no reseeding. There's no.
Mm-mm.
Uh-uh.
If the 11
Re-ranking
beats
or
the
anything.
6, the number 1 team doesn't get to play 11.
Mm.
Okay. How do you feel
So
about that?
I think that's the way it should be.
Yeah, that's fair.
It should be predetermined.
Yeah.
Well, both for betting markets as well as importantly for it. It just
Well, the
needs to
betting
be a
market's from
structure.
week to week.
Well, but you can't do a bracket. You can't fill out a bracket because you don't have a bracket to fill out. But I think more
Well, and
importantly,
you enter into more controversy as well. if
yeah,
you go through
exactly.
reseeding.
It's like you're stacking it for the top teams.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
Well, I had mentioned to you guys.
No, I see the logic. I mean, if you're saying, okay, we want a 12-team playoff. However, we think the top 4 teams are really the best and they should have the easiest road, then
Yeah,
maybe.
instead of, if the 11 beats the 6, the number 1 team should be playing the 11 team and not the number 8.
When the number 4 team gets to play so the 6-11 is going to play 2. So the number
Well,
2
not
team
if-
would play
not
But,
if
2.
five-
there's not a lot of incentive if you're
No,
one of the
10-7
lower.
Oh, yeah,
plays too.
Yeah, the 10,
But
yeah.
if you're one of the lower seeds, it makes it. That's like saying you would reseed March Madness after every single round, or
Right.
something like that.
I mean, that's
Like,
exactly what it would be.
and it
You're
just
trying to
undercuts the
say
integrity of the actual playoff mentality. Like
that
if you're a worse team and you beat a better team,
you're better.
you're better.
Well, how do they do the college softball tournament? It's a bracket that's reseeded.
They flip brackets. They flip sides like midway through.
So I don't see
But there's a
why.
losers bracket now. That's
Yeah,
why
there's
they
a
flip
losers
that's why
bracket.
they
It's
flip
double
brackets.
elimination. Yeah. So I don't see why just because I'm number 1 and I'm supposed to play 8 versus 9, but the 11 team won. All of a sudden I
I
get the
get
benefit
rewarded.
and I get rewarded and I get to play the 11 team. I don't think. Also, it makes preparation difficult because if you're prepping for teams, you could look ahead and say, well, I'm going to spend a little bit of time looking at film for these two teams because one of those two is going to be my opponent. Hell, you don't know who's going to be your opponent.
I mean, we know the brackets won't stay this way, but just off the initial ones, I mean, if you're the 2 seed Georgia right now, your draw is number 10 Notre Dame or number 7 Penn State. To me, that's by far the best draw.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if you look at Oregon, you're sitting at number 1, and you've got to play the winner of Indiana and Tennessee. That's not a very good draw to be the number 1
And they said
seed.
they came out, they did some mock lines for those. And I think Tennessee, you said, you sent that, and I think Tennessee was like a 6.5 point favorite against Indiana or something like that. So,
And then BYU, it's a crapshoot. I mean, on one hand, you could say if Boise was good enough to beat Ohio State, then you don't really want to, kind of scared to play that game.
but probably not. That's probably a fluke.
Yeah, but yeah, being BYU with Ohio State being the 5 seed, number 2
Mm-hmm.
in the
Yeah.
AP poll,
Right.
but the 5th seed in the bracket, that's not
Right.
a good draw either.
Uh-uh.
And,
well,
then,
and
and then number 3, Miami,
That
again, they're looking at the winner of Alabama, Texas.
all of this gets at, and that just demonstrates the nonsense of the automatic bids.
exactly.
It's stupid.
It is very dumb.
That is just, that's wrong.
And that, like you said, like that, and that's why the case for your original question is even more strong, is because the team in that 4th seed, it could be anybody. It's
Right.
the worst of the champions.
Yep.
And let me play them, please.
Well, I'm
Like-
sorry if you're going to have years where 3 teams from the SEC or Big Ten, and then the other teams coming from that opposite
Yeah, I mean,
conference
5, 6,
are going to be the top 4 seeds. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is.
Well,
They're
it
the
is.
best team.
5, 6, 7, and 8, most years are probably a better football team than the 4 seed.
yes,
In this system.
Yes.
Yes.
absolutely.
For sure, 5 and 6 are. Almost for sure, 5 and 6 are. Right? I mean-
yeah, I'm like I said,
Yeah, and that's why it's just this meritocracy of like, hey, you won this game.
well, yeah, because the 2nd seed SEC,
SEC and
2nd
Big
seed
Ten
Big Ten.
are going to be better
Right.
than
And at
the
some
lower
point-
of the champion from the ACC and the Big Ten.
It's not
Big
going to
12.
take long for this to work itself out where people realize that, and like,
I don't know. I don't know if it'll reverse though. Those
I don't
powers that be are tough. I mean, we're still playing in all of these, bowl matchups, so that's the other question. We may have talked about this before, but should the second round be in home fields, or should we be going to bowl games? I have an argument for and against. So
I think 2nd round should be at home.
I would agree. The only bad thing is you run into, yeah, I don't know.
here's
But
what
that way you get the benefit, because in one hand you lose the financial benefit
right.
and just the fan engagement of having a home playoff game, right?
Right.
So you could eliminate that by getting that 2nd round as your home playoff game.
So
Not to mention, I mean, it'd be beneficial to play at home, obviously,
well,
versus a neutral site.
so that the allure of it to me is it makes for a much more exciting football game, both to watch and to play in. Because if we've got 2 teams going to a neutral site, the idea that their fans, almost any fan base, is going to travel to see that is going to be really low. So you've got a stadium not filled, but partially filled with disinterested corporate tickets. It's going to be a very subdued atmosphere. That's not good for football in general. And it's also could be a weird reward for a team. I think we've walked through this before, where they back into a game in their backyard they don't deserve.
Yeah.
So if the game happened to be
Like
in
Texas at Jerry World,
Texas at Jerry World or
Georgia,
USC at
North Carolina,
Pasadena,
and Charlotte or something.
something. Yeah, I don't know if there's not a Charlotte location, is there?
Yeah,
Well,
the
I mean, they could put the
NFL
Panther
field.
Stadium.
Oh,
They
yeah,
do- they do
they're
play
always
games.
they're in the traditional
It's always
bowls.
bowls.
So I mean, there's many opportunities. Miami in Florida, and you look and you say, there's
Miami's the
no,
orange.
they do not deserve to be there. That they're getting a home field, so that's unfair. Or it's something totally subdued and it's not fun. Now, on the other side of it, you may have a situation where Indiana is all of a sudden hosting a second round game, and they don't have A, they don't have the facilities for it, and two, it's cold as can be.
Yeah, you have, or even worse, Wisconsin or something like that.
Right.
Hosting a second round game and it's sub-zero
Right,
temperatures.
or Boise.
Yeah, but they
It's
could
a
argue.
man- It's a man sport.
Yeah,
You
but they
play
could argue
outside.
they've had that against them the whole time the bowls have become a thing.
They don't play.
No,
bowls there.
but I'm saying,
No, but
if
you're
they
not
if
playing
they
up there.
play, you don't
We're
play
saying you
in
don't
Wisconsin.
play up
Like
there.
if the second round and Wisconsin's in the second round and you're hosting a game
The problem
and
is
it's
the host,
the middle of December,
not
and
going to
it's-
Miami.
right?
It's
So
if
Green Bay hosts
No, that's what I'm
NFC
saying.
championship games. What's
They-
the difference?
The South teams always get to play in the South for bowl.
no, I know.
They never have to go play in the cold.
No, I'm not saying have to play. I'm saying you're going to an inadequate place who can't host a game in those conditions. So
But they host those conditions at the end of November.
Yeah,
there's a big difference between the end of November and
2 weeks
the
later
end
in
of December or the beginning of January.
Now global warming.
Yeah, they ran a snowball.
I think there'd be
It
but
doesn't
I don't
stop
think
Green
they'd be able
Bay.
to do it.
I mean, it didn't-
Green Bay's an NFL stadium. Green Bay's an
Right.
NFL franchise.
with NFL infrastructure.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's where you might run into it. Plus just capacity. It just might again be so I could see the other thing that I see is you're trying to reward the players and half of those players, one team that's as far as they're gonna go. And so they deserve to go to a fun location in a nice venue and have some atmosphere and celebration around it. And Bloomington, Indiana is not that place. Miami is that place. So I could see it from that standpoint of let's go to a fun location and let's relocate.
If
It's
I
just
had
not
a-
very fan friendly.
If I had a vote though, it would be second round home games as well.
I think I'd say that too.
And
just
it
prepare and
also
figure it
cuts
out.
down on. I mean, can you imagine if and when it happens for us? I can't imagine. Let's just say we're the away team and we win, and somehow like traveling for 4 bowl games potentially.
Hmm.
Like if you're a team that
Oh, you're not gonna do it.
figures it out, like you're a 5 seed and you can figure it out to make it all the way to the national championship. I have to figure out if I'm a fan and I want to go to games.
What if you're a
I've got
9
to
seed?
travel.
No, for the 5 seed, you get.
Yeah,
the home
you're
game.
right. Yeah,
No,
sorry.
if you're a 9
The
seed,
9 seed. Yeah, or one
you're
of
not
those
gonna
lowest
do it.
seeds. No,
You're not
That's
gonna
never
do
going to happen anyway.
it. It might. It
The
might.
9 seed won't make the national championship game.
I mean, exactly. And that's why you're like, well, I
Indiana.
guess I will and won't go. But you're like, if
Not
you're an
the
Indiana
third
fan
one
this
scheduled.
year and you're like, where do I go? Which one do I actually go to watch the team? Because budgets are limited. I can't do both. So
Well, that's going to be fixed next
it's
year.
tough. Well, yeah, we'll all have so much
I
money.
mean, Bama's 11 seed.
which is
Now, and even Bama fans won't travel.
But
Yeah.
I mean, that's a team good enough, obviously.
Yeah,
To
and
make- to
obviously
make
good
it.
enough to
Yeah,
make
to
it.
make it.
Yeah,
Go through
they could go all the way.
Yeah.
And so if I'm a Bama fan, I'm like, I'm gonna wait and see where we end up. But
Which
I don't
maybe
know.
it's more benefit. I mean, maybe that at that point it's like, all right, like this is where the true home field advantage comes into play for that first round. Because if people are gauging what games they want to go to and they think they can make it further, they're
Right.
not going to go to that first game.
Well, that's where I think
especially if
it
it's
should
something
be.
across country, like where you're having to travel to the West Coast or something like that.
that's where I like the meritocracy of it. I don't like the idea of 4 teams getting automatic buys just by virtue of being in a conference. Let's get the top 4 teams to get the buys. Let's have home field for the first 2 rounds and figure it out from there. And if
Right.
somebody can't get there, it's going to be rare. And then we go to the fabulous locations and it's a blowout. I don't know. I think that's better. It's more the NFL model. And that's where we're kind of trending. And if some teams can't keep up with it, it's just like all of this stuff. Then get out of this
Yeah,
level of
Sorry.
football.
Yeah.
It'll be really wild when we get that scenario of like when Connecticut won the Big East,
Oh yeah.
right? At some point in time, you're gonna have like an 8-4 team, not even ranked in the top 25, that wins.
Or
Even worse.
big-
No.
or no, you're going to have a non-power 4 school
Exactly,
who's
you're gonna have-
undefeated
Exactly.
and gets the 4 seed, and you're going to have an ACC or a Big 12 team that has 2 or 3 losses that's won the conference
Do you think they'll
championship
give-
is in the bottom seeds.
You
It's the
think they'll give
top
one of those?
4. It's the top 4
It's the top
conferences.
4. It's the top 4
ranking.
top ranked champions.
So if they're
regardless of
ranked, so if you've
conference.
got an Army,
Not just the Power Four.
No,
No.
not power 4.
if an Army runs the table, they may get that 4th spot and not just that Big 12 team out of it, but also obviously the Big 10 and the SEC number 2
Yeah.
out of it. And that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
That shouldn't happen.
No.
So we'll see. It's got some interesting scenarios that could happen.
It's going to be
they'll
fun to
play out.
watch.
It will be
It's gonna
really
be really fun to watch.
It's
I
gonna
wish
be-
we were going to be part of it. We're not, but I was dying for I am dying for playoff game in Norman. Like,
It's funny because I'm dying for it and I'm also dying for it to be avoided.
Yeah.
But if we can be that 5th team, I'll take it.
100%.
That's a sweet spot to be in. So that one more question then. Coming into next year, what is the record that you say right now is the make or break Brent Venables must be better than?
8-4,
I said 8-4 as well.
Better than 8-4 or at 8-4?
8-4
or better.
8-4
I
or
was
better.
gonna say 8-4.
Not knowing context, but just in general
For this season to be, or next season?
for next season.
Next season, 8-4. Yes.
Yeah. Any
Because you
difference?
do the same
Jay?
schedule. You have the same schedule as this year from a conference standpoint.
Yeah,
I have a-
at Michigan.
I have a different take on it. I at first said 8-4, and I'm not changing that necessarily. But more importantly, you have to compete to be in the playoff. You can miss the playoff, but only because you barely missed the playoff. So like this year, Alabama could miss the playoff if they're 9-3. I think they actually will if they're 9-3. They'll miss the playoff. That would be okay. If you're 8-4 and you miss the playoff, then that's okay. If you're 8-4 and you did not compete, there was no way you were going to get into the playoff, which is kind of where we are this year. If we happen to be 8-4, I don't know if that's enough. You got to be showing me that you're competing to get into the playoff.
Yeah, so much of right now is just based on it's eye test for us, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I'd say how does your 8-4 look?
yeah, exactly, and it looks really bad.
So you're saying
Like-
you win your 4 out of conference games, then you go 4-4 in conference, but you lose your last 3.
Yeah.
Then you're saying,
Or you just killed in those 4 games.
That's probably gone, or that's real close to gone. That's going to be really hard to overcome because then, not knowing how good Michigan is next year, that's not a real good resume from the non-conference. And then you're looking at a conference schedule that you're mediocre. And
you have an equal
again,
chance.
context could change it. If all of the teams you lost to are in the playoff, that's different, but it's probably not going to be the case.
You have an equal chance next year. I mean, there's not a lot of turnover on these teams. I mean, Ole Miss will have some turnover with the transfer portal, but they'll re-up. Is Jackson Dart leaving this year?
Doesn't he have to?
I think so.
Is he? Yeah.
I thought he was done.
So
I mean, Tennessee has a very like old defense. At least their front 7.
they have a young
Very
offense. though.
experienced. Who else?
South
Auburn,
Carolina, I have
Auburn.
no idea about. Auburn, I don't have
Not
any
sure.
idea about.
You don't know what Bama's gonna do.
Texas will have Arch. I don't know. I mean, I guess my point is it's not going to get much easier next year. Like, it's still going to be a pretty,
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's going to be a pretty brutal schedule with an LSU team that's pretty young right now as well. Getting better, who's not bad.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Who knows?
never know with LSU. That's fair. I don't know. And you get them at home. So who's your toughest road game next year? Tennessee? Alabama. Tennessee or Alabama next year? You have to go to Tennessee and to Alabama next year. That's not
That's
and
probably
to South
tough.
Carolina.
and to South Carolina. which is
probably
one of the
tough,
toughest
but-
places to play.
In all honesty, that shouldn't be a challenge. We should be better than that. Like if you look at the year in and year out, Alabama, Georgia, the teams we're trying to be as good as, we think we're that type of a program. That's just tough, but you're not looking at that as daunting of like, I'm going to split the schedule and win half.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I don't
You're
want
going to win those games.
I don't want to be split like going into the season next year as opposed to what we did this year. Like you just said, Steve. Like I don't want to be splitting the schedule and being like, this is where I definitely think we can win. This is where I definitely think we can lose, which or probably will lose. Like I wanted to say these are all games we can be in. Maybe I did say that before this season.
I did.
Definitely don't feel like that now, but
It should have been.
I want to have that confidence to say I mean, like you said, we want to be with those teams that you're talking about, the Alabamas, the Georgias, etc. Those are all games like, yeah, it's gonna be tough, but that's a game we can go and
To
win.
me, that's the benchmark though. And I'm not going to apologize for it that's the standard I'm going to hold them to long term. If you look at Georgia, they've had some nail biters, but they found a way to win. And we got to be the kind of team that finds a way to win. They found a way to win against Kentucky. They found a way to win against well, obviously Texas, but Auburn, who was the other one that they went down to the wire just this past week. Florida.
Third string quarterback.
They
Florida.
found a way to win against Florida. Now, obviously, that's a bit of a disappointment. You don't want to have to do that, but they did. They found a way to win and they won. So if you look at their record, they're in great shape. That's where we need to be.
Is this what people were saying about us when we were all bitching when we had Lincoln. It was like, OU just finds ways to win,
Oh, absolutely.
you know? Like it just feels
Well,
so.
that's actually an apology that we made, is we found a way to win.
Yeah, I mean that was a negative for us. Was man, we're in games that we shouldn't have to find ways to win. That
Well,
we're
these were much
finding ways to
lesser
win.
teams.
And they were
Doing
much
it
A
lesser
much lesser
teams,
team.
much
That's
lesser
fair.
teams.
I mean, I don't know. Florida's a much lesser team than I think Georgia's in a bad spot right now. That team seems like a lot of smoke and mirrors. Like I know they went out and performed. They have talent, obviously. They go out and perform against Texas and beat them in Austin. It's not. I mean, they're gonna have this weekend's gonna be a good measurement of what Georgia is playing against Ole Miss.
But is this the last test on their schedule? They play Tech, right? You could look it up. I don't know, but
They've already played Tennessee, right? No, they haven't played Tennessee yet.
look it up real quick. I think I remember looking at that, and this is it for them.
No, this could be just because it's our first time in the league, so it's not that we don't pay attention to the SEC, but we're in it now. But I feel like we are and have been in every game this year,
Oh,
even
absolutely.
as bad as we are. And I think,
We win
I
the, we
think
won,
we
we actually
can.
won the South Carolina game if it's not for the
but I mean,
three stupid touchdowns we gave them at the start
I do think we can win at Bama or against Bama.
I
I
agree.
think we can win at LSU.
Right.
Because to me, parity across the sport has caught up, but I think for the first time, it's really starting to show itself in the SEC, where every team is accumulating the majority of the talent across the country.
Oh yeah.
And to me, the SEC this year feels like the NFL.
Well, definitely, and whether they recognize it or not, aside from the fact they don't have the dominance that they had at the very top of the ticket, you do have a deeper league than you've ever had in the SEC with the addition of OU and Texas. If nothing else, it's numbers, and it's numbers that came in with talent and ability. It's not like you added Oklahoma State and Texas Tech. You added Oklahoma and Texas to this league.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
it is
looking at
very
looking
Or
at the
Stanford and
games.
Cal like the ACC did.
Right.
Yeah, SMU.
I mean,
Yeah.
look at just this week's games. You're like, okay, we just watched South Carolina whoop up on a top 10 team in the country. And you're like, oh, they're at Vanderbilt? It's tricky. I don't know who's going to win that game. It's like, well, normally when you see a team beat someone in the top 10 and then they've got a Vanderbilt coming up, it's not even a question
Right.
Mhm.
who's going to win that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Georgia they have Ole Miss this week and they follow up next week with Tennessee.
Okay. All right. They do have it.
After that, they've got UMass and Georgia Tech.
So they're basically a lock for the playoff. It'd be really hard for them to not make the playoff, right? I mean, they
Well, they
lose,
lose to Ole
lose.
Miss and Tennessee.
If they lose this weekend,
Yeah, I guess lose, they would
Yeah.
they would be outside, probably.
but that kind of undercuts everything we were saying with what we thought at the beginning of the season. With if I lose to God, who is there? If I lose to Bama,
If we split our
Tennessee-
six-part game.
yeah, if I lose to Bama, Tennessee, and Ole Miss, I'm 9-3 against three probably top 10 teams at that point. I should be in. Like my
Yeah,
strength of
it's a
schedule,
strange year.
like you said, my strength of schedule is number one in the country. I beat Texas on the road.
Well, the wrinkle is the Big Ten is getting more teams in than we probably thought on paper. So they've got just like the SEC, the Big Ten is competing with Indiana, Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon. So that's pretty tough when you look. You got four teams right there truly vying for it.
Yep.
Now you easily could have a team. Indiana might be in that sweet spot of the five, where they try to avoid getting into the Big Ten title, and their only loss is a narrow loss to Penn State.
The strength of schedule it'll be fascinating to see what the playoff committee is going to do with stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really hard to argue a one-loss Indiana if they only lose to Ohio State.
Oh, Ohio State. I said Penn State, Ohio State.
But
Yeah.
if they only lose to Ohio State,
Right.
and you've got a 3-loss Georgia,
Yeah.
who's beaten Texas, and
Yeah.
beaten.
What if they get
or
stomped by Ohio State? they're 11-1, and their only truly tough team, not by name, because Michigan's a name, but they're not a tough team this year, is Ohio State, and they get drilled 35-0.
You're saying Penn State?
Indiana.
Indiana. Do you leave Indiana out of the playoff
With one loss?
11-1.
at 11-1?
Well, what
That's
about
so tough, but you're looking at these teams
No,
like
but the
Georgia.
ACC doesn't have enough teams to fill. The
Yeah,
Big
but what
12
about it?
more than likely isn't going to get more than 2.
Well, they're going to get
Yes.
in over a 9-3 Alabama or somebody like that in that scenario. And I
They
think
could get
we
in
all
over
agree,
a 10-2 Ole Miss.
and I think you're going to agree, any of these SEC teams are better than Indiana. In
Well,
that case.
if the committee is leaning back on strength of schedule and stuff like that, then you'd probably leave them out. I mean, what'd you say, 106 right now? Is
Yeah,
what
it's not
Indiana's
good.
I think
strength of schedule
103.
is?
And I don't know what
103?
But they'll have Ohio State.
I don't know what the
Help.
Ohio State does to that.
But in this scenario, they've gotten destroyed by Ohio State.
When is that? That's the last game. No, their second to last game of the season is Ohio State, I think.
Isn't it like the
Or is
one
it
after
next week?
this? One after this, I
Next
think.
week?
Um,
That'll be fun.
Well, obviously, Ohio State's last game is Michigan.
so
No,
I guess
yeah,
the
that's
saving
right.
grace for them is in that scenario, they're probably in the Big Ten championship. What if they get
Well, not if it's
drilled?
Oregon and Ohio
Ohio
State.
State.
Or Penn State.
Yeah, maybe not. You might have yeah, they may get left out by
Maybe a
tiebreaker.
rematch.
What if they do though? What if they get, like, assuming the scenario is alive, they get drilled by Ohio State, and yet they get into the Big Ten championship and get drilled and they're 11-2. Then they have to get left out over a 9-3 SEC team, right?
Absolutely, right?
Well, what
Especially
if,
if it's a
should.
Georgia who was like,
well, if they lose to Ohio State and there's an Ohio State Oregon rematch and Ohio State loses again, does Indiana get in over a
Ohio
two-loss
State?
yeah, Big Ten's a kind of a mess.
That's kind of a mess. Well, and they're already a mess. At least this may have worked itself out a little bit, but I didn't read the article. I saw the headline about how the tiebreaker could set up a really weird situation. Something along the lines of what you're talking about, where the two teams that match up, and there's another team over here sitting here just because they got eliminated by the tiebreaker, but they probably deserve to be in that game more so than one of the two teams that are in there. So it could be, and that could happen in the SEC too.
Well, conference champions, I mean, we talked about this a little bit too, and not to prolong the conversation, but conference championships could be detrimental to some teams
Oh, absolutely.
who are, you know,
Shoo-ins.
ranked in the playoff.
Well,
one
you'd
week
rather be the 11-1 Indiana
and left out
left out
and say, I want
pencil me in.
Yeah, I want the one loss Penn State to go lose the conference championship against Ohio State, and I want to bypass it.
Yep.
Like that, you get into a whole new level of controversy with that. I mean, that was some.
And
of
the controversy
conversation.
is the team that is 11-1, who's a group of 5, who gets in.
Yep.
And that's bad. That's ridiculous.
Well,
that guarantee is so stupid.
It's like one of the conversations that happened earlier in the year where does a team like Ohio State, if they go and play Michigan and both teams are undefeated, do you sandbag, play your second string, you're not great players because you're already ranked in the playoff, you kind of save your best players, and then you go and play and again, it's a risk, but you go and play the conference championship with your best players to bank on winning that. I don't know. There's just a lot of weird little loophole or not loopholes, but kind of
Pitfalls.
pitfalls to the system. So, and there's always going to be, like, it's not going to be
Sure.
perfect until you get into an NFL style playoff with divisions where it's SEC, Big
Yeah.
Ten, or something.
I think
like
when
that.
you eliminate some of these teams and you just
you
get it
have
down
to
a
reduce
smaller
the
league,
number of teams.
get it to a smaller
Yeah.
league. I don't really like some of how the NFL does it, where you get these divisions that are not very good. I would rather it
And they
be a
benefit
little more
from it.
open-ended and put everybody at large.
Well, and college football has shown they're open ended with letting teams like Stanford join the ACC. Like it's not regional based like the NFL is.
Yeah.
The
that's really
NFL
strange.
is detriment is you have regions of the country that are terrible football teams, and it works in one of those teams' favor every year, where you have 500 teams getting into the playoff because they played in a horrible division.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I know. When I think NFL, I think Dallas in the East makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, right. Yeah, obviously.
Fair enough.
It's kind of like the NBA when Memphis was in the West, and I mean, even Oklahoma
Memphis is in
City.
the West. Yeah.
Yeah, they still know it.
Yeah,
Yes,
they're
that's
still
right.
in the
They're still in the
West,
West. Yeah. That's silly. Well, let's wrap it up. Let's talk about this game, the Sooners against Missouri. Let's go down the line and let's make a prediction on the score. I'll throw out the first one. I think the Sooners are going to win. I got the Sooners winning 31-20. They win by double digits, and I think it'll be more so if we're truly facing the backup quarterback. So I'm hedging a little bit, and I'm hoping and really leaning on the idea that we've got a couple of big time receivers back, as well as I'm thinking we get at least one of the two running backs playing, Barnes or Salchuk. What do you got, Connor?
I have OU winning 34-27.
7-point ball game. All right. That's a lot of points. The only thing that even my 20, it's a lot of points for Missouri to score.
Yeah, I mean it's the same story this year kind of as last. Like our defensive just kind of, I mean, I'm not gonna say it's fallen off, but Jay, you brought up a great point on the post game. We're not getting the turnovers that we've got in the beginning of the season and that we got last season.
And you almost have to get them in this game.
And last season it was like the coverage was breaking down later in the season, but we were still forcing turnovers. We're not forcing turnovers right now. The coverage and stuff may be better. The
Losing
overall-
Dolby is hurting so much.
It is.
They-
Having a
game by game,
solid
you've seen
nickel
that.
has or
Yeah.
cheetah is costing us, but we'll see. I'm optimistic.
What do you got, Lucas?
I have Oklahoma 20, Missouri 24.
Oh, the loss. In a game we're favored. Taking the loss. Wow. Bold move, Cotton. What do you got, Jay?
2017. OU.
20-17.
Right, playing it down the line.
Have to
Shaw?
win it.
What is the over under? I didn't
It's a
even look.
must win.
It's more than 37, isn't it? Which is kind of strange to me. I don't know. I don't see them scoring that many points, so I like your 17. But I'm sure that the over under is in the 50s, right?
Nope. 41.5.
41. All right. Well, you're not too far off that, just a little bit. Well, we'll see. I'm going to be there. Connor?
Yep, I'm going.
All right.
I'm going.
We're in. Jay, you in?
Nope.
Come on, buddy. All right. Lucas?
I will sit this one out.
All right. Watching from home. We'll have the post game pod. We'll be back to talk about all that. Talking about how OU is either bowl eligible or on the outside really desperately needing something to break their way. But until then, Boomer.
Sooner.